What is up, everybody? Well, I'm so excited to be back with you. I hope you guys are having a fantastic week. I have the radiant Cindy Phillips with me. I called her ravishing last week, got yelled at by Cindy.
Yeah, radiant, man. That's my word, radiant.
I like radiant. I still like ravishing. I'm a big fan of all of it. Good to see you guys. Hope you had a great week so far. Hope you had a great week last week. Cindy and I are here for our third of 4 weeks where we are going to be doing a lot of sales training here, and kind of let's Cindy, we'll do a recap in a minute here. I got a couple things that we're going to talk about here, just a little housekeeping items. Actually, I got my Celsius drink here, so I just grabbed that. Let me crack that. So we're good. I should have a beer is what I should probably have, but it's
cranberry juice, not wine.
Okay, that's fine. So we got a couple things that we're going to go over, just a little housekeeping for you guys. Cindy and I just came out of, in fact, let me make sure I have this up. I didn't put a link in here for this, but we just came out of, on Monday, we did our sales strategy webinar, like our long webinar that Cindy and I do. We do it once a month. Let me throw a banner in here for you guys so we can have that. That's this URL. We'll post it in all the chats. If anybody that's one of our staff is watching this, feel free to post it in the comments on whatever platform. Note, we are broadcasting right now on my personal profile, the 7-Figure MSP profile, my YouTube profile, my LinkedIn profile, and then our IT and MSP business owners group and our million+ MSP business owners group. We use a tool called StreamYard to do that, so we can simulcast over multiple things. This webinar that Cindy and I do is actually a Zoom webinar. So part of the differences are we like Zoom on certain things. We like StreamYard on certain things. One of it is just like how we're delivering the content. So you see, like, this is a group live training. We're not really asking for participation. It's Chris and Cindy talking to the world. On our Zoom webinars, this is actually like a live workshop. So we did the recording from this on Monday. We had hundreds registered. We had a bunch of people on the call, a lot of people on the call with us live. So if you go watch the recording of this, it's about 2 hours long. A little bit of a sales pitch at the end on this, but you can see the long play of how 7-Figure MSP basically uses the cybersecurity risk assessment and the why that works, and then how it works. So we have the why and the keys, the how and the keys, I guess we should say, of how you guys get there and how we teach our members to use the cybersecurity risk assessment to get to the $300 per seat mark and beyond. So you can watch that there. That's where the URL is for that. Second thing, we have our live event coming up in Nashville. This is May. And Cindy, every month up until now, I've been saying the wrong damn days.
I knew that, but I wasn't sure. I was like,
I'm an idiot. I'm just an idiot. I got too much shit banging around in my head is really what it boils down to. And I work Cindy, you know this, I work exclusively off script. So sometimes when you're off script, you make mistakes. That's really what it boils down to. But you know what you guys get from me every time is it's genuine and it's natural, and it is what it is. So our Nashville event, you can register. It's live.7figuremsp.com. We're going to be doing a full cybersecurity and incident response planning pre-day with tabletop exercises and a workshop. We got some partners that are going to be vendor partners that are going to be working with us on some of that stuff. That is live.7figuremsp.com. The dates, the pre-day is May 16th. Got the date right. Our full live event days are the 17th and the 18th of May. And then there's a full day you can purchase to spend with me working on a bunch of preset topic stuff. Our members get that for $2,500. You get breakfast catered in, you get lunch catered in, and you get a steak dinner with me out at a restaurant in Nashville. I think we're going to do, I forget what it's called, but there's one like right down Broadway on the corner there. We're going to do a private room at that place. So it'll be awesome steak dinner. Maybe we'll see what's going on in Nashville that night, but we're going to go out and party too. So it'll be a good time. So live.7figuremsp.com. We'd love to have you guys there. Our events are killer and they're very different because we kind of have a mix of 50% of our members and then like 50% guests. So we got that commingling of members and guests that come. Not everybody's a guest, not everybody's a member. So it's a really good mix and it's a really good community scenario as well. So, okay, a couple things. And Maria, thanks for throwing that in the chat. Maria just threw our date in there as well in the chat. So that's cool. So, Cindy, let's get into our presentation for today. We got about 55 minutes left here as we go. I'm going to take that banner off. Did you have a giveaway today, Cindy, by the way, or like a leave behind? Because I didn't have that.
Oh, you know what? I forgot to have a leave behind today. So
That's
I
okay.
don't
That's okay.
have
We'll
one of
we'll
those.
figure it out as we go. So I'm going to throw your presentation up on the screen here, and
Okay.
we'll talk kind of about the stuff that we have for the next 4 weeks. So I'm kind of going to let Cindy take it away from here. If you guys got comments or questions, please put it in the Facebook, like whatever medium you're watching this on. Please put that out there. We will comment, and I'll, you can see how I can pull the comments up on the screen. Maria had a typo in this one, so I'm going to make fun of her on that, and then I'll say, okay, here's the one she fixed it on. So, but I'll bring it up on the screen like that. But here's week 3. Cindy, I'll let you take it away.
Okay. So in week 3, I just want to go back and say, what did we do in week 1, week 2? Now we're up to week 3. So in week 1, you can go back and there's a link you can get in. You can go back and watch the earlier recordings. Okay. But in week 1, we really talked about why all roads lead to the cybersecurity risk assessment and why it's valuable for both the client and for you. It's like a big win-win on what we like to call shared competence. Then in week 2, we focused on how to get the ball rolling. How do you start things off in a way that's going to serve you well over your entire sales process? And it all starts with the first time appointment. So we did a deep dive into the first time appointment. Now, I'm going to show you the whole sales process in just a minute. But today, what we're going to concentrate on is we're going to concentrate on that thing that everybody has universally in common when we do sales, and that is how do we handle objections? So I've got a little bit of a different way of looking at objections, and this is what it is. You don't get objections from people who don't care. They just ghost you and ignore you. In my opinion, objections are all about having an authentic conversation. We need to think about this a minute. Do you object to things if you don't feel like you can really have a conversation with somebody? Well, maybe you do if you're a troll, but for most people, there's got to be a little bit of a bond there. For you to even feel like you want to bring up an objection, you've got to basically be in the game. You got to be thinking about moving forward before objections even start. So I look at objections not as an obstacle, but I look at objections as a signpost or a what do you call it? A light that shines.
It's kind of that light bulb that goes on that says that they actually care, right? That's
Yeah, they actually care.
One thing I will say, which I do know we're going to address, we definitely get occasionally I have an MSP sales objection, I have an IT guy sales objection, but I think for the most part, some of them are, I'm already paying this much, why should I pay more? Which is a great objection. And
we're going to talk about that.
we'll talk about all that, but I think some of these, most MSPs are looking at it and saying, oh, I don't know how to handle that. This is why you need sales coaching, folks, and sales training, and to work on this. This is why we're here. This is why we're doing this.
Right. So everything I'm going to teach you today, you can start today doing. Okay. And it's all about, first of all, thinking about what's really going on when the prospect or the client is flapping their gums and running their mouth and saying things that you're perceiving as an objection. And I'm going to show you how you take those things and close sales out of it. All right. So first, let's go back to our basics, right? We always talk about running the play. I love baseball. So it's just like anything. You've got to set yourself up for success. So we have a super simple sales process. First time appointment, discovery call, execute the CSRA. That's where you get your facts that are going to give you something to talk about that's specific to that client. So they know that you are dialed in on them, that you care about them, and that you understand their business. So first time appointment, discovery call, execute the CSRA, and then the last step in our sales process, you share the results. You help them understand what you've discovered about their business. You've diagnosed their situation. And then when they ask for your help, you help them understand what's going to need to happen, and you're in a position to close for the sale. Sharing those results and closing for the sale is all in one meeting. Okay? One meeting. You can do this. So, objections. When do they come up? Right? Are sales objections different at each point in the process? And Chris is going to help me out on this because when I ask you a question, I really want to know the answer. So you got an opportunity here to kind of light up the chat. Do you think sales objections are different at each point in the process? Give me a thumbs up, yes, or hell no, whatever it is you think, because I'm going to tell you what I think, right? So, Chris, is anybody lighting us up? Are they telling us?
It takes like 10 to 15 seconds on Facebook. So just
Yeah,
be mindful that
wait
we
till
don't
you
have the immediate response like we have on Zoom
So
sometimes.
you can tell I'm such a Zoom bigot because when I ask a question when we're in with our members,
Well, it's
bang,
like
bang,
boom,
bang,
boom,
bang,
boom,
bang,
boom, boom,
man.
boom. Yep,
It's
yep,
like,
exactly.
bang, I get the instant feedback.
We'll
Well,
get them. It'll just take a couple seconds. So here's yeah, people are saying, give it to us right now is what I got from Barry. So
okay, so here's the thing. Sales objections are different at each point in the process, even if they use the same words. Okay. Even if they use the same words. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through what objections you're going to find at each point in the sales process and what the subtext or the meaning of the objection really is. And then I'm going to show you a simple format, a simple procedure, if you will, for how you can consistently respond to objections. So, I know I can't see you. You can't raise your hand, but believe me, I'm raising my hand because when somebody throws out an objection at me, I tighten up a little bit. Sometimes my brain freezes and I'm wondering, what do I do? So you have to have a play that you run, a consistent set of things that you do when you get an objection. So even when your lizard brain is firing off and you're like frozen because you're like, I can't believe they just said that. You've got a process that you go through every single time. And the beautiful thing about having a process for understanding how to handle objections is you can train other people on your team to do the same thing, which means eventually, when you get over $3 million in sales, you can hand this whole process off to somebody who works for you. So let's go into what is an objection. An objection at a glance is really an authentic conversation. So, what we have to do to handle the objection is we have to understand it. So, the first thing we need to do is we need to absolutely listen. Now, how many of you go into conversations where somebody starts talking and you already know what you're going to say back? True confession, you know you do it. You do it with your spouse, you do it with your kids, you do it with your friends, you do it with your team members, you do it with your prospects and clients. So, what we want to do is we want to break that behavior. And the biggest thing we want to do is we want to use a considered pause. It's what I call wait a beat. It's kind of out of improv or comedy where you wait a beat before you reply, because what you want to do is you want to send a signal to the person that you're in the conversation with that you're actually listening. Okay.
a lot of people call that cadence. Like you got, and
Yeah.
you know,
There you
the
go.
trick about cadence is it requires practice and it actually requires participation in doing this because you can't measure your cadence unless honestly you can sit here and practice all time against a mirror, but it's not going to matter. It's not a whole lot different than Cindy and I have done probably 200 of these live events. We know each other's cadence because we're doing it all. So we can come in here without a lot of practice because we're so seasoned now. But in the early stages, we didn't know each other's cadence and how we work together. It's very similar to that. So you got to think about this. You can't just pop this out and have it in a script. This is where scripts in sales get really dangerous because people are like reading down things or any type of cold calling. It's the same thing in marketing. Like you don't want scripts. Notice how I came into this call and I said that I am unscripted because I want the responses to be natural, not seeming rehearsed. And I want it to be part of the scenario. So I'm kind of poking around and doing a couple other things here, but I'm listening to everything Cindy's saying, and I'm very, very unrehearsed, unscripted.
So here's the thing about going back and forth with somebody. If you watch Chris and I do this, we model this behavior with each other. When Chris and I first started working together, we talked over each other. We don't do that anymore. You'll see that. Maybe you've had situations where you've been on sales calls and you're just chomping at the bit to get what you want to say out, before you forget or before the client gets distracted or whatever. But when you quote, slow your roll and really listen, what happens is the person that you're talking with, there's an opportunity for their brain to have new and additional and different thoughts. And this is so important. So what we do when an objection comes up, first we listen. And we say something to affirm that we are listening, like, I understand. And notice when I say the words I understand, I'm always giving a body language signal of nodding my head. And I'm nodding it up and down. Have you ever seen anybody go, I understand? Just try it right now. Try to say the words, I understand, and shake your head no. It doesn't work. You feel weird, right? So I understand honors the communication. We know that we're really in there. Second thing, we need to know where they're coming from. Why are they saying this? What is it they believe that caused them to open their mouth and say whatever it is they said? And they can be saying something that's a fact or something that's a belief or whatever it is, but you need to know more. So if you're taking notes, I want you to write down my favorite 3 words in sales. You ready for this? Tell me more. Tell me more about that. Tell me more about why that's so important to you. Right? I want to get on the same page. Tell me more, right? Now, when they tell you more, you're going to actually have more information that you're going to need to analyze, right? You're going to need to think, okay? So many times what you try to do is you try to skip straight to a response, right? But if you listen, if you probe for additional information and then you analyze what they've said, what you're going to find is that your response is totally different. Your response might be another question, right? You may be in this loop of probing more for 2 or 3 questions until you really narrow down on what the issue really is. And so I'm going to show you how to use this framework at every step in the sales process with some of the most common objections we hear about all the time. And you might be saying to me, well, Cindy, you don't own an MSP. How do you know what the objections are? So listen, I've trained a boatload of people, and every week I'm in multiple calls that are called sales open office hours. And what we do in those calls is I open the call by saying, does anybody have something they want to workshop? And people come in and they throw in and they explain, they verbalize, they tell me what's going on with their prospect or client. And then what we do is we break it down, right? We break it down to all the little steps and we see what's really going on in the communication. So literally, I've broken down thousands and thousands of objections in the last 3 years. So I want to ask you, and I want you to light the chat up on me, but looking at this model, right, of the listen, the probe, the analyze, and respond, right now, what I need for you to do is to have a little self-awareness, and I want you to share with us in the chat, which one of these 4 steps do you think is going to be most difficult for you? Okay. I know it's going to take you a couple of seconds to put it in the chat, but here's why we need to identify which one of these steps is most difficult for you. As we go through the process of handling an objection, right, you're going to have to change your behavior. Right now in our 7-figure MSP program, we got book club and we're reading Atomic Habits. Okay. So from an Atomic Habits point of view, when we want to replace an old habit and put a new habit in place, we need to know exactly what little habit we can replace, change the game for us. So if you know which one of these is hardest for you, it's going to help us out. So Chris, are people lighting up the chat with which one of these is most difficult?
So we have a response from Barry that said responding is his biggest challenge. If anybody else is out there has any feedback with this, feel free to respond, and I'll feature you on the screen.
Okay, great. So Barry, I'm going to keep you in mind as we go through things, and I'm going to give you clues on how to handle the responding. And just to start it off right now, the biggest thing on the responding is having good probes and then giving yourself permission to actually analyze what's going on before you start. So responding is actually easier when you don't have a script. Okay?
Yeah, and I agree with that because you see how natural. I want all of you to think about how natural Cindy and I are. This is all like she's got her obviously she's got her slides and she's going off, but she doesn't have a script in front of her for this. And
No.
it's the same basic concept. So everything we're doing, I have nothing on my, like, I'm literally feeding off of what she's saying, off of her slides. And I kind of make it a point to not see slides beforehand. This is the first time I've ever seen these. And I trust my team member to do this the right way. And Cindy kills it every time. So we just know that we can fly together, but I'm responding naturally. And you see this, obviously you have to have some practice at this and you have to be decent at it. I'm not going to debate that. That comes with, I've done hundreds and thousands of live videos at this point. So this is all easy for me. I roll in here, don't get nervous, don't get worried. And I just literally, Cindy and I were in the green room at 10 minutes before we went broadcast, shooting the shit. And we're like, okay, ready to go, let's go. And everything's just like feeding off of each other. But that's that natural feedback that we have. Cindy, here is another one. I can't see who this is. Oh, I hit the wrong button. I can't see who this one's from because it says just Facebook user, but it's the analyze, because most of us go in with the typical IT issues as pain points. We need to get specific. Here's the other factor, guys. If you go back to our discussions, and I want you to go back and watch the videos from the last couple of weeks. So Cindy and I were live. These are saved in the group and in the, I think it's in the guides section of the Facebook group here. You can go back and look at it. But we talked about the CSRA the last few weeks here. We also have that strategy webinar that we did on Monday that I talked about the recording and I dropped the URL on. We talked about the CSRA and how the market is different now. And the typical IT issues, your clients don't care about anymore, nor are they relevant. We're seeing a lot of this market really shift and change. So the analyze and the respond have to be different, because no longer are you talking about IT issues as the scenario. We're talking about the risk as the scenario. And we got some really good things coming in here. Cindy, you want me to go through these now or do you want me to wait?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. And I know Cindy's looking at her slides because she's only got one monitor. I shipped her 2 monitors for the record, so she should have those this week. So they're coming. Here's another one. This is from Jessica. Jessica said, probing and not sticking to the script, actually trying to draw out information from the person you're talking to, therefore showing your interest also in the conversation. So I think that is a very relevant point. Thanks, Jessica. That's really good. There's another one here. From Facebook user. Note it says Facebook user because you have to authenticate with StreamYard. So if you guys want to do that in the future to have your name shown, you can do that, but that's what that takes. My biggest problem is trying to work with a business owner who is gate kept by their IT guy who thinks they know the cybersecurity risk. We're going to talk about this in a minute for the record. Where the IT guy, we had a situation where the IT guy told the owner that they don't need an antivirus on their Exchange server, and months later they got a ransomware attack. How would you have prevented this? So we're going to talk about that in a minute here. So I'm going to table that for right now. We'll come back to that. Okay, Cindy,
okay.
I'm going to hand it back to you for a minute here.
All right. So here's the thing. The big takeaway for me from that conversation is a little bit of what I expected. Everybody's got a little bit of a different area where they don't feel as strong as in other areas. And that's natural. Everybody's like that. What I will share with you from my coaching practice, that the number one objection that I see is what is in the seller's head. So if you're going out to do a sales call, before you go on the call, you think you know, and I'm putting this in quotes, but you think you know what they're going to say. You think you know what their problems are. You think you know what they're going to do because you've worked with so many different businesses. So you've got objections in your head. And one of the biggest ones that I work with people on is what they charge for their service. And I can't tell you how many times people have told me specifically these words. They will not pay $300 or more a seat. They will not pay the price I want, right? And people are really strong on this. And then they won't just make the statement. MSP owners don't just make the statement. They then cite chapter and verse on all of their experiences, which make their belief true for them. So one of the things I just want to point out to you is that your thoughts also drive objections. Okay. And I'm going to get into how we change that and how we open a space for new things to happen. Because if you go in and you're rock solid that this is how it's got to be, that's what you're going to get. And that's why I always say this thing that I say in our webinars every month: do what you've always done, get what you always got. So the biggest thing that happens with objections here, if you handle them like you used to, you're going to get what you always got. If you move over to this different framework of listening, probing, analyzing, and then responding, the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to erase your personal emotional reaction from the conversation. And Chris, I got to give you full props, man, because you are the one who drilled it into me, the difference between a react and respond, right?
Yeah, I learned that. I will tell you where it came from. I live kind of my life that way. I had my practice wife, starter wife, practice wife. I had to practice first, but I went to marriage counseling. She did not. She refused to. So I went by myself after she refused to. And one of the things that I learned in those sessions, there's actually two things that I really took away in my life. One of them is the react versus respond, or respond versus react thing. And not saying I was very reactionary, but it was just one of the things that we kind of learned out of that. Neither of us were that reactionary, but it was something I learned. The second thing was every problem is a 50-50 issue. I actually learned that because there was a lot of blame that was coming down on my side. And then, she came from, long story short on that one, but I learned every problem in life is a 50-50 problem. I don't care whether you think you're at fault or not, or if you think the other party is 100% at fault. You share some of the blame. Second part is always respond, never react. Because so many people are like, they want to react immediately. So that's where that comes from.
Yeah. And in a sales process, a lot of times, if we haven't actually studied how to build a sales process, we're driving on pure emotion and pure reaction. Okay. So I won't spend too much time on this. If you want to share in the chat, the question is, do you create objections in your mind before you visit the prospect? And I can tell you that I know people, I know hundreds of people, I probably know thousands of people who do this. I do it. I create objections in my mind. Anybody here ever lower the price? They put their bid together, they do the cost of goods sold calculator, they get the number, and they're going through their deck the last time before they go out to see the customer, and they change the price and lower it. If you've ever done that, then you create objections in your mind. Okay.
Well, and there's so much, I will tell you, I want every one of you that are sitting there on the other end, the amount of I don't want to say this is entirely me, but it's definitely me and Cindy together. We've been trailblazing 250 to 300 to 350 to 400 per seat for 3-4 years now. We've been actively out there saying you can sell more. The immediate response we get 95% of the time, can't get that in my market. So you're immediately saying in your brain, you have objections before you've even tried it. And so many members come in, they sign up for our coaching program. They come into our initial week's onboarding. We have a full 4 days of onboarding that you get in your first week of starting our program. And the first thing is I can't do that. I live in so-and-so. You can do this in any market. So it's half of our job is breaking the stallion, removing those objections before we even get to that point. And we call that head trash in our program. That's half of our battle. Is that?
Yeah, we have to take out the trash. Okay, so let's go into the sales process. And if you want to take notes, this is where it's going to start getting fun. Okay. So the first time appointment, this is what I call the coffee date. You're going to go meet with somebody for 15 minutes only. And you're going to find out whether you have enough mutual interest to move forward to a discovery call, a 45-minute session. Okay. Now, first question, why do you get a first-time appointment? You hooked them. They answered or downloaded a lead magnet. They talked to your cold caller. Something hooked them. There's a reason they're taking 15 minutes out to talk to you. Think about how busy people are. People just don't meet with you for no reason. Okay. So the first place where we get objections is when we start talking to them about why they need to do something different, what the issues are, how much things have changed, right? We get objections there. And then we also get objections when we ask for the next step, when we try to close them to go to a 45-minute appointment. Okay. So let's look at some of the common objections, right? The shared why. When we're in the shared why piece and we're talking about what's going on, they're going to tell us we already got an IT guy. Or they're going to say, I really don't understand why this is a big deal. Head in the sand, right? Cybersecurity, who cares? Or they're going to have a negative mindset, which is, we haven't needed this stuff for now. We don't need this stuff. We're never going to need this stuff. Or my favorite one is, oh, this sounds so interesting, but we're so busy with all this other stuff, right? Now, when you get to the point where you're going to set the next appointment, the types of objections you're going to get are no urgency, not a priority, or they're going to say to you, and this is my favorite objection here as well, I won't give you 45 minutes of my time unless you tell me right now how much this stuff is going to cost. Okay? And we get this all the time. And I'm going to share with you how you exactly handle that, as well as we already have an IT guy. So thumbs up. You guys ready to actually dive in? Let's dive in.
Get it.
We have an IT guy. Okay. Well, this is all very interesting. The client says, well, this is all very interesting, but we already have an IT guy. What the subtext is for that? Hey, listen, you already got an IT guy. Why are you talking to me? You can't be happy. If you were happy, you wouldn't be here. So you're waving at me, this IT guy, and I am not impressed with this. Okay. So let's prepare a response. Why did they agree to meet with you? It couldn't be idle curiosity. They've got issues. All you got to do is align with their priorities. What's the priority when somebody says, I have an IT guy? I want to make sure that I'm not double spending, right? Nod your head. I understand. How's that working for you? Anytime somebody tells you, I've got an IT guy, write this down. I understand. How's that working for you? It's what I call my Dr. Phil question. How's that IT guy working out for you? I don't care if he's in-house. I don't care if it's a department. I don't care if it's another MSP. I don't care if it's a break fix guy. I want to know how's that working for you. And after I ask them how that's working for them, they're going to tell me some issues or problems. And then I'm going to hit them with my 3 favorite words in the world. Say it with me, folks. Tell me more, right? Tell me more. And if I want to get really specific and kind of dive down, because I'm leading with security first, I'm going to probe. What type of discussions have you had with your IT guy about security? Now look at how I structured that question. What type of discussions have you had with your IT guy about security? Notice I didn't just use the word cybersecurity. I'm broader than that. Security. Cyber's part of it. It's a big part of it. It's what we focus on. But I also want to know if they've talked to him about anything else to do with security. So at this point in the first time appointment, I'm staying broad with the use of the word security on purpose. What kind of discussions have you had? That's an opening. That's an open type probe. Now, when they get done telling you whatever it is they tell you, and I really don't care what they tell you, right? Here's your next step. And this goes directly to our friend whose first name I've immediately forgotten, who said that he had trouble with the respond part, right, Chris?
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Here's how you respond.
That was Barry.
Well,
so you know.
Barry. Okay. Well, Barry. Well, our next step is only a 45-minute meeting, at the end of which we'll be able to align our next step with your current priorities and resources. We can do it on Zoom. Would that work for you? Now, look what I've done with this response, Barry. First of all, I've defined what the next step is. It's only 45 minutes. Second, I've held a payoff out there. At the end of that meeting, we'll be able to align with our next steps with your current priorities and resources. That includes the IT guy, right? I'm going to align with what you're doing with your organization. Now, why do I use the word align? It's a huge word for anybody that's using the Entrepreneurial Operating System by Gino Wickman. That word's everywhere. Well, we just want to be in alignment. You'll hear people talking alignment. It's like the small business / corporate bingo word, alignment. We use that align because that hits a touch point that says, hey, this is a safe thing for us to be doing. When I say we can do it on Zoom, why am I offering that up? Because on Zoom, I'm not wasting any time with anybody. I don't have to travel to their facility. They're probably not going to get interrupted if they do a Zoom. Has anybody else noticed how much quality time you can get with people over Zoom? It's a huge tool. So would that work for you? You're going to get immediate up or down. If it doesn't work for you, what would, right? What would work for you? So you see where it's at. And remember, the most important thing, first time appointment is about screening people out, right? So the probe is what opens it up. It makes it easy for them to tell you what they're not happy about with their current situation, right? Second thing that's not on this slide, so pay careful attention, write this down. Everybody's got somebody doing a certain amount of work right now. Are those people busy or do they have extra capacity? They're busy. Anytime a new project comes up or something extra comes up, it's going to turn out that they need more resource to achieve their goals and execute their priorities. It's a very common thing for business managers to know that their in-house staff can only take care of what they currently have their in-house staff doing. Nobody staffs for extra resources. So when they tell you you've got an IT guy, you're like, great, that's somebody that speaks our language that we can work with. Okay. Now let me see. Last thing. Would that work for you? If they say no and they want to walk away, but for whatever reason, you just really want to make this happen and you're drooling all over yourself to land this particular client, then you ask this question. And this is kind of like a little bit of a dig, but you say, what happens when your current staff does not have the time or the skills to solve your problems? Now, have you noticed that's a little bit of a challenging kind of question? But you're asking them to think, you're asking them to put themselves in a future state. And if they say, well, I don't really know, well, listen, if at any point in time you want to give us a call, we're here. Or if you want to put 45 minutes into figuring out what we can help you figure out what your next step should be, we'd be happy to do that, right? So I'm embracing the IT guy. I'm coming at it from a mental thought, my own mental thoughts. I want to work with their IT guy because there are things that IT guy doesn't want to do. And he needs help. And he's probably way under-resourced. And he knows it, but the CEO may not be willing to admit it yet. And you can
and the IT guy probably doesn't want to admit it either, but deep down they know it, right? That's a really important thing to remember.
Yeah, they know it. They know it.
Hey, Cindy, really quick. Let's back up one slide. Actually, you can never mind. Go back to where you were. I'm just going to take off the group share quick because I want to get us on full screen. I know you can't see this because you're only on one monitor. But one thing I want to tell you guys that are watching this really quick. Notice how Cindy is pivoting the conversation away from any type of tools. It's any type of tech. It's all about risk management and determining what issues they actually are having on their network, but even things that they don't realize they have yet. You have to understand the way that you were selling in the past from day zero right now backwards is not going to work from day zero forwards. And it's not so much that it's not going to work. You have to understand times have changed. We have to use different tools now than we've ever used before, Mr. Client. We have to also understand that we have to approach risk differently than we ever have before. You are getting hacked. I don't care how great your tools, we can put the best tools in the freaking world in, and it's not going to matter because you're going to get hacked. What happens when you get hacked and money is missing and we can't file an insurance claim because it shows that your network was negligent? We have to have those discussions now. And I can't be, right. You guys notice I get animated about this, and I get very, very passionate about it because the same old damn tool discussion doesn't do you an ounce of good when the insurance company is barking down your back. And don't give me the bullshit response of, my clients don't have insurance. They're never going to need it. We're seeing in the last 2 weeks, we got FTC safeguards coming in. Cindy, who's dealing with FTC? Note, guys, anybody that's financially related, meaning regulated industries, banking, financial management, they are governed by the SEC. But anybody below that deals with any type of money is what, Cindy? FTC regulated. That's in the States. Right. It's coming to Canada. It's coming to the UK. It's coming to Australia. In fact, I was on the phone with Marnie this week from Lifecycle Insights. She's like, something happened in the UK this week, literally an hour ago. She's like, something happened in the UK this week because I have people asking about FTC safeguard stuff. What's going on? I'm like, well, the stuff happened in the US about 6 months ago. The UK is dropping all their version of the FTC safeguards. It just hit Canada too. So that stuff's coming. We also saw last week in the United States, the White House released their new cybersecurity initiative, which is saying it is your job, IT service provider, managed service provider, to make sure your clients are notified of this, or it becomes your responsibility. This stuff is coming your way. So whether or not, like, breach these conversations with your clients, this is how you handle these objections. Okay, so please understand that's where this comes from. Okay, Cindy, I'll get off my high horse rant.
Okay, all right. It was good. Okay, so now the reason that rant is so timely is because everyone who owns a business and they go on a first-time appointment, they're going to say, "Oh, you know, it was really nice to meet you. You got some interesting. We got some interesting takeaways to think about. But right now, we're in the middle of blah 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 project, and we're not going to be able to get to our security questions for at least 90 days. So how about if we circle back up 90 days from now?" Now, we've all had that push off, right? It's what I call the other pressing issues objection, right? We're all very interested, but let me get back to you when things calm down. And what they're really telling you is, yeah, you know, this is nice, but it's not a must-have. And I just want you to leave, right? I may call you back or I may not, right? So how do we give people a sense of urgency? We got to go back to basic principles. Why did they agree to meet with you? It couldn't be idle curiosity, could it? They've got some kind of issue. All you need to do is align with their priorities. That's really the goal of the first time appointment. Get on the same page with everybody. Nod your head. I understand. That project sounds really important. Now, if you tell somebody that project sounds really important, they're going to take that as an invitation to tell you more about it, which is important because you need to know a little bit about it. Because you're going to come back with the killer question, the killer probe. How are you setting priorities with that situation? How many people have clients who have projects and they can't make their projects complete? You know that happens a lot of the time. So when somebody says, "I'm going to push you off for this project," well, how are you setting priorities with other things that come up in the organization? It sounds like you're all hands on deck with that one. How's that impacting the other parts of your business? And the reason I'm asking this question is very important, because if you find out that their people are overworked, overstressed, when do people make mistakes on phishing emails? When they're not fully present. So you want to know how much stress they're under, right? And then what you want to do is you want to make sure that your next step, the discovery call, sounds small, it sounds contained, and again, we can align with your priorities, right? And you just go back and you ask if it would work for them. And if not, then here's how you swizzle a little bit of a challenge question to them. What happens when you have an unexpected attack during the project? Did you know that criminals focus on companies that are under stress? That's where they like to strike. Do you see how that works? Right? You're adding a little bit more fuel to their brain, to what they're thinking about. And you're continuing to have what I call a very authentic conversation, because this is absolutely what criminals look for. They'll get in, they'll read the emails, they'll find out there's a project going on, and then they will wait until there's a crescendo moment where they know that people are overstressed and they can take advantage of them. Okay, let's go to the next objection, number 3, that we get in step 1 with the first time appointment, which is I'm not going to invest 45 minutes with you until I have some kind of idea what the price of your ongoing service is. Now, this is probably the single most common objection we run into all the time. So I have hundreds of data points about what happens when you shoot a price and you shoot your shot before you build value. Okay. Under no circumstances do you give a price at the first time appointment. And here's why. The client is really using price to decide if they want to move forward because it's their number one priority. Now, here's the problem with that. The problem with that is they're not giving you the time to understand their business and point out where their risk is so they can understand what kind of situation they are really in. There are two reasons why people say, what's the price? One, they truly can't afford it and you need to screen them out. Or two, they're strictly buying on price. They don't respect what you do. They don't understand the risk that they need to manage, and they're not open to learning about it. So what you have to do is pivot the conversation so that they can learn a little bit. You need to understand why is price their number one priority. So nod your head and say, it sounds like price is your number one priority. Do I have that right? Tell me more about that. Is price the most important consideration for you? Get this out in the 15-minute appointment. 15 minutes, that's all you've spent in this relationship. Find out why price is a driver for them. Make them explain why they have to have a price right this minute. They may even tell you that that's one of their buying rules, okay? Whatever the idea is, get it out on the table. And here's your response. So I'm coming back to Barry. Barry, here's your response. I can't give you a price yet. That's what our next meeting will help me understand. Now, they keep telling you they got to have a price. They're like a dog with a bone. They're on it. This is what you say for the second response. I understand that other folks, other people, other MSPs are willing to shoot you a price. They'll just shoot you a price. They'll ask you 2 or 3 questions. They'll shoot you a price. But we found that that doesn't serve our clients well. Would you trust someone to do the work that can just pitch you a price without knowing anything about you or your business? Do you really think your business is like everybody else's? I mean, that's really the thing, right? If I'm just going to shoot you a price, I'm either padding the price so that I can handle anything that comes up, or I'm shooting you a price and I'm at risk of losing money. Either way, right? Or I'm shooting you a price because I think I know in my own head what you're going to accept. And I'm shortcutting the whole get to know you thing. So how many of you have clients that you don't like? Clients that drive your team crazy? Clients that won't do what you recommend and tell you how to do your job? And on those clients, how many of those had price objections or wanted to know the price early or made you give them the bottom, most low price you could get? Those aren't the only kind of buyers out there. And you don't have to settle for that kind of crap.
Hey, well, really quick on that, Cindy, a couple nuggets that Cindy had that right there that are really key. Notice before, a couple slides ago, she mentioned, well, let's have a call on Zoom. One big thing that MSPs are very traditional with is, oh, I'll come out and see. You can easily have this initial meeting on a Zoom call. We talked about this last week. Zoom, Teams, I don't care what your platform is. We just call it Zoom because we use a lot internally. But you can easily get somebody on a Zoom call and have this conversation with them, this initial first-time appointment discussion to determine if you want to move to that next meeting. I think that's a huge factor. And actually combating these things is why you need to practice, why it has nothing to do with the tools. Handling these objections is how you get the right clients. You want better clients, not all. I had an MSP tell me a couple of weeks ago, I closed 100% of deals. Think of what 100% of your prospects are like. 100% of them. You don't want them all. You maybe want 50%, maybe want 50%. This is why you charge the right amount. This is why you go through these processes, because instead of getting all clients, which has 50% of crap in it, you get better clients that are your clients. And if you're charging the right amount, you can afford to do that, not taking everything you can get. I compared a lot to dating. Just really, really quick. I compared a lot to dating. Just imagine taking 100% of dates all the way. Not great. Not great. Okay, Cindy, keep going.
Okay, so this brings us up to why you have to have pricing rules. So I'm going to take a little bit of a detour and I'm going to give you my pricing rules for the first time appointment. 15-minute call. Yeah, you're going to have to talk about price, but here are your pricing rules. Number one, you need information to price accurately. We've only been talking for 15 minutes. I don't know that much about your business, how things operate. I can't give you an accurate price just yet. That's what the discovery call helps me do. Second, our business model, we don't shoot in the dark. We diagnose, then we prescribe. It's a bespoke solution. Okay? If you want to know something about price, I will just share with you that when we look across our entire book of business, our minimum fee across anyone that we do business with is this much money. That minimum fee, I call it my get out of bed number. Okay. I have a dear friend, Terry, who told me once, he said, I won't get out of bed for less than $2,000 a month on an MRR deal, right? Just won't do it. That's his get out of bed number. He can't be bothered to trouble with you if you're not going to make at least $2,000 a month, right? So you've got a minimum deal size in your head. You just haven't claimed it. You just haven't said what it is. In our program, people come in with a minimum deal size, and then over a 12, 24, 36 month time period, what happens is your minimum deal size moves up. And when that starts happening, the quality of your customers moves up. The number of calls you get goes down, your standards go up, your efficiency goes up, and pretty soon your whole business transforms. So if you've got one takeaway from today, get your get out of bed number, get your minimum deal size defined. Okay. It makes a huge difference. So tell us in the chat, do you have a minimum get out of bed number? If you do, let me know what it is, right? We'll kind of read them out so you can get an idea of what your peers are doing. Okay.
I remember Jerry Morgan. Jerry Morgan's one of our 3-year-old members in our program. She went from no get out of bed number to what's is hers like $1,500? I think it is. Is her get out of bed number or something like that?
So the great thing about Jerry in her get out of bed number is when we did Trailblazers and we had business reviews with Jerry, what would happen is we could look at her book of business, and based on the data of the contract, we could tell you what her get out of bed number was for that year. Okay. Because she enforced that religiously. And then as contracts started turning over and people started renewing, those numbers kept going up. And she applied efficiencies in her business as well on the technical side. And the next thing you know, after religiously practicing this for a few years, you have a completely different business. So if you don't have a get out of bed number, get one, right? Yeah. If you need help, hit us up in Facebook and we'll talk about that. Okay. So we've got sales objections at each point in the process. We just dove into the first time appointment. Let's go now to the discovery call. Now the discovery call, and I just want to be clear to everybody, I didn't train on this structure yet. So we'll probably do that in a future call, maybe in a few weeks. But there's there's interviews, you identify security gaps, you then share your insight about what these gaps mean. And then you go to the next step. And in the discovery call, our next step, typically at this point, we make a decision about whether or not you're serious about understanding your potential gaps and what to do about them. And that requires a cybersecurity risk assessment, right? And that's a fee-based engagement. And we do that for clients all the time. And for a 10-person company, that would be around $1,500. Is that something you'd like to move forward with? Now, when you get to that point, because you've gathered information and helped them see their problems, They're going to be sitting there going, oh my God, is there a hacker in the house? What do I need to find out? What don't I know that I need to know? And the cybersecurity risk assessment is going to be a small amount of money. It's a paid for engagement. There's no obligation on your part to do more work with us. So what are the objections we see at the discovery call, right? We see the objections when it's time to take action, when we close the call, okay? When we close for that cybersecurity risk assessment. We also see some objections when we get to the interviews because they're like, oh, I don't have time to meet, right? And so you're back to chasing people. And we also see some objections when we're explaining to them what things mean, right? So on the discovery call, common objections, we've already got an MSP. Our insurance agent says we're covered. We're too small to be hacked. When they get to the CSRA, what other kinds of objections do we have? No urgency. We already have a risk assessment. My favorite is when the insurance company did the risk assessment. That's my favorite. You going to trust what an insurance company tells you? And why should I pay for this? Why should I pay for a CSRA? Those are common objections. So when they say insurance says I'm covered, here's how you handle that. The client says, no, we're all good. My insurance guy says I'm covered. I don't need a CSRA. Well, what that really means is they're either not interested or they really do believe their insurance guy. And you need to get to the bottom of that. You need to understand which it is and why they trust their insurance guy. So you nod your head and you say, I understand. When did you last speak about this? And the reason you want to know when they last spoke with their insurance guy is because things are changing so quickly. The odds are extremely high that they're dealing with outdated information. And then you ask them this: have you stopped to consider what will happen if you have to make a claim? What that process is really going to be like? Now, who here has made a claim with their insurance and loved the process? You get the fender bender. Do you love that process when they tell you got to take it to the cheap shop down the street that does terrible repairs and doesn't use certified authorized GM parts or whatever it is because they're using refurbished parts? Do you like that part? No. Nobody likes the process with the insurance companies. So you ask them, what's that process going to be like? And do you have an incident response plan? And then here's how you respond. So Barry, here's how you respond. It's very common for insurance to tell you all is well, but who suffers when you need to make a claim? You and your business or the insurance company? Wouldn't it at least make sense? Wouldn't it make sense at least to understand where your security gaps are and what it means for you or what it means for you today? So do you see how that worked? That's how we take care of that one.
And one thing I want you guys to think about, the insurance rep that is talking to them, selling them whatever they're selling, is a salesperson. They are not the underwriter. They're also, what is the other, the claims agent? What do they call that? I forget what they call that.
The adjuster?
Yeah, the adjuster. They are not the decision makers in who pays the claim out. You guys got to understand that, especially if they are, you think about who you're, and I'll just give you a good example. My home insurance, car insurance bundled plan that I have, my guy that I talk to is a local insurance rep. That's all he is. In fact, he owns his own practice, but he doesn't have anything to do with the claim at all. He's not a decision maker. They're sales reps. So your job is to fight through that.
Exactly. Fight through it. Okay. You're also going to run into people who say, we already had a cybersecurity risk assessment. So we already had a cybersecurity risk assessment. We don't need another one. That really sounds plausible, doesn't it? So what that really means is either they're not interested or they really do think they're good. Okay. Just because they tell you they had a CSRA doesn't mean they had a thorough one. All right. So you need to understand exactly what was done. And did they take any action? Why didn't they take any action to secure the business? So you're going to nod your head and say, excellent. This is great news, outstanding news, good news. I'm so glad you had a cybersecurity risk assessment. When was your security review and what were the findings? What were the findings? Now, if somebody's gone in and done what I call a light CSRA, maybe they ran a tool and gave them a report, how much of that do you think they internalized? Zero. So when you ask them this very specific question, very specific language, what were the findings? Deer in headlights, baby. Then you follow up with what actions did you take and why or why not? And what we're going to uncover is they're still sitting at the starting line and they haven't moved. And then you're going to respond by explaining to them that your CSRA is different. It's more comprehensive because things have changed. And that's a big thing. Things have changed. Now let's get to the price objection, my favorite. Your CSRA price is too high. Now we actually pretty much never run into this. If we get through the discovery call, the way we've got CSRA's price, they very rarely say it's too high, but they might. I mean, that just might be something they say. Your price is too high. So what it really means is they're not willing to invest. I don't think it's worth it. So you need to understand, is price the only issue that's keeping them from moving forward? Nod your head. I understand. Way to beat. Is price the only issue keeping you from moving forward? Get that on the table. Get them to say what they really feel, what they really mean about the price, and then confirm why it's an issue. Because if the CSRA price is too high, do you think they're going to be able to afford managed service? What's going on in their business? And then ask them, what price would you consider reasonable or one that you could say yes to? And see how low they shoot a price back to you. Because now we're finding out more about what they value. Do they want to get the work done? Are they just playing a game? What are they doing, right? And listen, don't respond. Just keep listening. And then we tell them, here's what it costs to do this work. And don't be afraid to share details at a high level, because they're used to people just coming in and either doing a free network assessment or something maybe extremely low cost. And there's a world of difference between what we encourage people to do and actually require people to do that are in our program versus what other people may choose. And here's how we explain it. We put our best technical people on the CSRA. It's the most important work that we do. It's very comprehensive. We put over 40 hours of manpower into this project. And sadly, our fee is at its lowest possible level. We'd love to do it for less, but we will not sacrifice scope. Do you understand your risks? When we do a CSRA, you're going to understand what your risks are, and you'll have a roadmap you can use with any technology provider to cover those risks. There's absolutely no obligation that you continue to do work with us. So you get but you get an independent, unbiased view of what your security gaps are. And you'll understand what you need to do to resolve and take care of those gaps. And it'll be up to you whether or not you ask us for our help or whether you go somewhere else. And we're okay with either answer, right? And that's why we don't negotiate price on the CSRA.
And I know most of you guys are giving away a free network assessment. In our program, we teach our members how and why you need to sell a cybersecurity risk assessment for an actual fee. There's work that goes into it, not a light pen test, not a light CSRA, not any of this light stuff. Sell them something real that has value, and you're going to see your interactions and your transactions from the clients change.
And also, if they don't want to pay for it, what are the odds they're going to pay for service?
Yeah.
Okay, so there are sales objections at every point in the process. When you execute the CSRA, some of the common objections that happen when we actually go to do the work is that the executive sponsor is too busy to participate. And we do require executive sponsor participation. We check things off. We run it like a very comprehensive project. And you've got things that you could check off that need to be done. Or you'll have other key players that don't want to participate, or they'll want to delay the findings presentation. These are all the kinds of things that go on. The big one, though, is that they'll have another MSP that doesn't want to give you access that you require to execute the CSRA. So when you have no participation, here's how you deal with it. They'll tell you, oh, this is really interesting, but we don't have time, blah, 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 blah. We don't have time. Let me get back. You know what that means. Maybe they'll call, maybe they won't. But at this point, they should have already signed an MSA and they've already got a scope of work and you've already charged them a fee. So they should be pretty much all in on this. But if they're not, then what you have to do is go back to aligning with their priorities and get back to them and say, hey, we need to get going, and always keep your next step. That participation interview, it's 45 minutes. We're going to align with your priorities. We can do it on Zoom. Let's get it going, right? Then the next thing is when they're all consumed, right? Back to what do we do when you can't get this done and you have a problem? If they're not cooperating, they'll say to you, we don't want our current MSP to know you're doing this work. A lot of people have heard that one. Well, you know what that really means? We're afraid of our MSP. We want to leave our MSP and we need cause to break the contract, but we don't want to ruffle feathers. How do we do this? Well, your client is conflict averse. You need to help them rethink the situation because this is a professional consulting engagement, nothing more. There is no commitment to move forward to managed service. We're not trying to take the account away from anybody. We are simply executing a cybersecurity risk assessment, and that is it. So ask them, what are you concerned about as we communicate with your MSP? I understand. Every professional MSP is going to understand the scope of the CSRA and how to limit our access to only what is needed for the assessment. And we can help you with that communication. By the way, if you're in our program, we got a sample email you can use, right? So when you get sales objections at each point in the process, just always stick to the model of how to deal with it. But now let's go to the one that most everybody's interested in, which is what happens at the closing table. So at the closing table, they're going to say to you, I thought we were already doing this work. The price is too high. I can't believe you want to charge me that. We're going to go get other bids. We hear these things every week, all the time. We don't need something this comprehensive. We want to pick and choose. Give me the Chinese menu. Or my personal favorite, you're trying to scare me into buying this. We don't need it. Okay? So, aren't you already doing it? This seems to be the one that most people who come into our program are most worried about because they've told their clients, I'll take care of it. We're doing everything. The client says, aren't you already doing this? You're supposed to be doing everything we need. They're angry. They're really angry. They really believe that you should and are doing this work. And you need to listen to how emotional they are because emotions fuel action. And when they're super angry, they're very likely to move forward and buy once they understand what's going on. And the easiest way to help them understand is that things have changed. And not only that, but you've got to be a little bit vulnerable. And you've got to acknowledge how much things have changed for you in your business. Let the reality of the situation sink in. And that's when the anger transforms itself into action. And you need to let that transformation take place. And it can't take place if you're not authentic and open and vulnerable about what's really going on. So your probe in that case is, do you understand how much the situation has changed in the last 2 years? When they get down, if they're still angry, you can simply ask them, what have I failed to make clear about your situation? What is it that you don't believe or don't understand? Now, if they tell you the price is too high, right? If they tell you the price is too high, they'll say, we want the service. They might even say, we want to buy it from you, but the price is just way too high, right? And what they're really saying is, we know we need to change, but we don't know how to get there from here, right? So what you need to know is, you need to know if price is the only obstacle. If price were off the table, would you move forward? Or is there any other issue? Find that out. And what's your next step? If price is too high, what are you going to do next? Because you want the service, you understand the risk. So what is it you're going to do if the price is too high? Now, they got a couple of options. They might do nothing. A lot of people do nothing. Or they might say, I'm going to go get new bids, whatever, right? But they're going to have to take some kind of action. Listen, and based on their response, what they tell you, their answer, your response is going to be a little different. If they're going to do nothing, what would it need to change for you to be able to afford the service? What would you need to cut? Now, here's the thing. When IT goes from being nice to have to an essential, other things in the business get cut to fund IT. And that's happening all over the place now. If they're going to go out and get bids, you know that getting bids is a painful process. So just ask them, be vulnerable. Do you really want to do that? Go ahead, Chris.
And one thing I want them to understand, your prospect, your client, you guys have to understand this. They have never bought IT in a I have to have it scenario, an essential scenario. So we have to approach it that way. We have to realize that they've bought IT traditionally the same exact way always. So their reaction to you coming in and having these discussions is going to be the same reaction they've always had. It's going to go down that traditional path. So you have to we call this a reframe. You have to reframe the entire mindset of the decision maker. When they start to understand, they've never had an IT guy walk in and say, if you don't do something about this, you're going to have things missing and I can't stop it. Oh, that's not true. How many of you guys sitting there across the internet from us can raise your hand and say, I can prevent all client hacks, breaches, compromises? Nobody can. There's no one out there that can do that. We had an IT guy today that I met, third party, say, I've been interested in your program, but my bank accounts got emptied yesterday. We don't know how it happened. The MSP had this happen. My bank accounts got emptied yesterday. What happened? Somebody got into the bank. Insurance is probably going to cover it because they actually got into the bank account, but we don't know. He's freaking out right now. This is real stuff that is happening in the world. You have to make sure your prospects understand that. That's the value of the CSRA. That's the value. And here's the other factor. Have we said a single tool here? Have we said a single tech tip statement? None of this has anything to do with the tools or the stack or any of this at the sales table. Yes, you'll deliver this. Yes, we need to make sure the stack is good down the road, but we have to get them past that point to understand how big of a deal this is. And note, you're going to have, you notice how Cindy says there, you're going to have people pissed off. 100%. We have to do things differently now. They don't think that way. So, and part of the objections we get from MSPs are, well, so we're basically admitting that we're not doing the job we should. Absolutely. Absolutely. We should be doing more. Times have changed. We have to do things more. It's my job now to advise you. If you don't stop smoking, you're going to have a heart attack and die.
Yeah.
That's the thing now. It's different.
So there's always another way forward. We have to conquer our fear of asking that question. What is the next way forward? Okay. And at every step in the sales process, there's going to be objections. And it's just a sign that you're having an authentic conversation. So if you take one thing away from this presentation today, I hope it's that authentic conversations, they're worth having. So, what is your key takeaway from today? Chris, we're winding down to the end. I know we went a little long. I hope it's okay.
Oh, it's
But
perfect.
I would love to hear from people. What is your key takeaway from today? And also, what is the one thing you will implement in your business? And Chris, I'm going to stop the share right now so I can come back and actually see your face and come over and check out the
It's not the
comments.
best. Trust me, my face is the worst part of this thing.
Hey, no,
One
my
thing I'll say,
favorite
I'm going
is
to put this up on the screen. This while you guys are writing your one thing that you got to take it away. What's your one biggest takeaway that you can implement? I want to put this up on the screen. You'll see that Barry just commented again. We had a client today tell us their insurance agent advised their policy does not have a list of requirements other than making sure that they were not negligent. Understand, guys, and just Cindy talks about this a lot. We talked about this on our webinar on Monday. Think about the fender bender. Let's say you're on a street or in a parking lot. Everybody's like, oh, are you okay? Are you okay? And then it comes time to, oh, let's exchange insurance information. And then the next point is, who's at fault? Who's at fault? Everybody's buddy while you're checking out to see if everybody's okay. And then as it comes down to who's going to pay the bill, the person starts to get away from that initial reaction thing is, oh, who's going to get a ticket? Like I actually advise my wife, keep your mouth shut. Do not assume, do not take blame. And like we've actually talked about this, she got an fender bender and learned this really the hard way because she didn't make them, even though the other person, she knew they were at fault. She didn't make them admit that and they didn't make the cops. So then it got to the insurance claim part and their insurance provider was trying to blame my wife. And she's like, well, this person actually prove it. So she had to take 50% blame, which is a totally different animal when you're dealing with an insurance company, right? So we've all been down that path. Here is one response from Facebook user. This Facebook user is here the whole time. It's crazy. Have a sales process that embraces objections. I think that's really key. Making sure that you actually have a sales process, folks, is absolutely massive, 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 massive. You have to have a process, a plan, and a system. Because right now, as we move forward, if you don't do that stuff, you are going to get eaten alive as we move forward. We've seen the FTC safeguards come into place in the United States. We saw, in fact, I made this while you were working, Cindy. I made this is actually the White House PDF fact sheet and full strategy for what they released last week. So I put that PDF as a download for you guys. If you want it, I put it as a little bit of a comment, but it's 7figuremsp.link/cyber strategy. It's all lowercase like you see it. You can download the White House's thing, but otherwise just Google White House Cybersecurity or White House Cyber Strategy. You can also Google FTC safeguards. Note that stuff's coming to Canada. It's coming to the UK. It's coming to Australia. It's coming to any country that would be prone to this is going to see versions of this happening, and you guys are going to be the ones that have to defend it. And it's really important. Barry said one more thing here, slow down and sell the value before pricing. Do not walk in the door, count PCs and give them a price. Have a sales process that follows your cadence. Really key.
Yeah.
Okay, Cindy, we are almost 20 minutes long. I don't even care. You killed it today. I was actually trying to print out a thing for my can that I was going to put around that said, I'm drinking Haterade today because I get so much hate for the everyone tag. But I hope you guys understand this isn't a sales pitch. This is a training session. You should, if you are in my groups following me, following 7-Figure MSP, following Cindy, following what we do, this should be relevant to you. If you don't like it, it's okay to leave. It's fine. You don't have to follow me. You just follow us. It's free content. I don't care. But we're surely going to keep using that because we're delivering really good stuff. Okay, last thing before we go, Cindy, what's next week? What are we talking about next week?
Oh God, you would ask me. I'm going to.
Hey, I love keeping you on the spot. I have no idea I literally have no idea what we're doing.
I got to go see what we're doing next week.
Some type of sales. It was on your first slide. It's that fourth.
Yeah, I know. I gotta scroll back, right? And God, you guys, if you guys ever work with me, you're going to know that I'm like so focused. Okay, scale your MSP with one stack. Okay, so next week, okay, from a sales point of view, here's what we're going to do. Next week, I'm going to show you why good, better, best doesn't work in the kind of world that we're in, and why going with what I call the big enchilada or the one stack makes it easier for your prospects to say yes to what you need to do.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's some principles in here about how we explain this. And you should probably know a little bit about me. I'm a former product manager, so I completely understand the whole land and expand. I'm going to sell you something and then I'm going to upgrade you. But things have changed. And that strategy no longer serves your business or the client's business well, because what you end up doing is you end up eating too much risk.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
Yeah. So we
that's
got Cindy next week. We're going to talk about the single stack approach and why that's the best. Your good, better, best, or your silver, gold, platinum, which I will tell you, I sold that way for a long time, guys, and we migrated off of that. Couldn't have been a better thing to do. Don't worry about delivery. We can handle that. We'll deal with all that stuff next week. Also, 4 weeks after that, we got Ryan O'Hara, who's our MSP in residence here at Seven Figure MSP. We are going to talk about your cybersecurity stack. We're going to actually get into the tools. Not something I talk about a lot, but we're going to do that. So my name is Chris Weiser for Cindy Phillips. Cindy, absolutely killed it today. You are a legend and radiant as always. You guys have a great day. We'll see you later. If you got any questions, feel free to shoot me a DM. Feel free to comment on this video. If you're looking for a replay, this will be live in whatever medium it's in. You can just go right back into the same post and you can replay it from start because it's a live broadcast. So it's on LinkedIn, YouTube, on any of the pages you're watching this on, you can go back in and watch it. So, all right, we'll see you guys later. Cindy, thanks a lot. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.